Shows how silly the whole situation is, especially what the left is saying, that everyone coming here is just, innocent and that
Sure.
there's nothing we should be afraid of. But at the same time, they're tacitly admitting that it's very dangerous there. There's violent people there, but we're supposed to believe that everyone coming and flooding into America are going to be model citizens and are completely innocent. And I think it just shows the type of people that are there on the other side of the border, and it justifies why Trump has taken the stance he has taken, which is we don't know who these people are that are flooding into our country from this dangerous country, and we should get rid of them. And so I think it just proves that what Trump's doing is the right thing, and that the people coming over aren't a bunch of innocent model citizens.
Yeah, I think that's interesting too. And that's something that I think a lot of the Democrats are pressing, is that there's this idea that the people who are crossing the border are all innocents, right? They're all just people seeking a better life. And I think that is so, that's so poorly thought out, because these are people also that are paying human smugglers, the cartels to bring people across. And they're coming from all over the world with nefarious purposes. There were already people coming across with terrorist plots. J.D. Vance was talking about that yesterday on CBS. There was somebody who was trying to do a terror attack in Oklahoma. So I think that we've seen that it makes a lot of sense for Trump to refer to the cartels as terrorists. And the terrorist cartels think of themselves that way too. The gang, what is it? The Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua. They have an open policy that you can, if you're part of that gang, you can go ahead and shoot law enforcement. That's part of it. That's part of what they're doing.
And to think that they're not also sending some of their cartel members in as just migrants, to think that they wouldn't do that is beyond naive. Of course they are. We had an open border policy. You better bet they're sending tons of people over into our country.
I've talked to some people on Twitter about this, or on X about this, and I've essentially floated the idea that the United States has spent the past 20 years dealing with terrorist organizations like this. Now, the U.S. is exceedingly good at dismantling terrorist organizations like this. When it comes to the action of dismantling, the politics aside, right? You talk about what happened in Afghanistan after the Taliban was expelled. And then you're like, okay, well, there were problems afterwards. And then you talk about what happened in Iraq after the Iraqi government was taken apart. And then they, basically subdued Iraq to a large degree. But then the politics got involved and the rules of engagement became a problem. The United States can, and also what the United States did to ISIS, the Islamic State, completely annihilated, like took them out almost entirely. But when the U.S. leaves, then you have a power vacuum. Then these organizations can come back. But with a situation where the U.S. isn't going anywhere, it's not like the U.S. is going to go back. Like if the U.S. were to begin operations in Mexico and work with the Mexican government to actually rout out the cartels, it's not like the U.S. is going to leave. The United States is still right there. If they're sending people over the border, the U.S. is not going anywhere. So the idea that the U.S. could leave and essentially fumble the ball on the peace is what usually is how it's characterized. That's not really an option this time. And so the thing that people bring up is, well, we're going to see terrorist attacks by the cartels in the U.S. And while that's totally possible, it's not like that wasn't a possibility when you were dealing with other terrorist organizations. I mean, the whole war on terror started because 3,000 people died on 9/11. Like, that's what set the whole thing off, an actual terror attack in the U.S. And there were a handful of attempts, and some that were actually successful. The Pulse nightclub comes to mind, and then most of them were random, individuals like lone wolf stuff. Do you guys think that the United States, first of all, should actually get into that kind of action with the cartels? Because if you think of it, like 100,000 people a year or something like that die of fentanyl, and there's probably 1 million people in some kind of being trafficked somehow over the border. 500,000 of them are kids, that are being raped multiple times a day. Is this something that the U.S. should actually start to do, to start to work with the Mexican government, try to get them to actually clean up their government because they're all in bed with the cartels, and actually start taking out the upper echelon of the cartels?
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.